me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
So, last night, I saw It, Chapter 2. And I didn't enjoy it. Full disclosure, never seen the original, never read the book, didn't see Chapter 1, the first remake. So I went into this completely cold, just knowing, you know, it's based on a Stephen King thing, it's very popular, and I enjoy a good horror movie, you know. So I'll start off with the positives. Fantastically shot and directed film, I think. Good performances from pretty much the entire principal cast. Very dynamic lighting, excellent shot composition. It's a good looking movie. To my mind, it falls apart entirely in insofar as you know, being a horror film and writing wise. So I took a couple of notes, and by took a couple of notes I mean I just wrote out a couple of things that I wanted to cover and why it was so frustratingly bad to my mind, because it starts out very very well. The movie opens pre-credits with like very graphic depictions of how do I have this written here? Violence against homosexuals, like hate crime violence, and then follows that with like a chilling, like very realistic depiction of you know, an abusive relationship between adults and so forth, which I don't have a problem with that, because in my mind I'm thinking, wow, this is this is uncomfortable, it's kind of chilling, and I'm interested to see how thematically this is going to play out throughout the rest of the movie. You know, is this going to be a central theme moving forward? Because you do see hints of it being referred back to kind of later on in the film, where you think they might be going somewhere with it. Spoilers, they don't. So the main characters of the film are the group of friends who, in the previous picture, you know, were children, and they're now grown up. It's 27 years later, and they need to return back to their hometown of Derry to, you know, banish the evil clown once and for all, and so forth. My first major problem is with the character of Beverly, because first off, I think the young woman who plays her as a teenager or a preteen does a fantastic job, and I love Jessica Chastain. I think she's a fantastic actress. Again, this comes down to writing, and to reiterate, I did not see Chapter 1 or just It, the remake, but there are allusions made to her having some kind of special precognitive powers where she can, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but a character dies, and it's said that she saw visions of this death prior to it happening. At no point does this ever come up again, really. Like, it's alluded to, but never is it put to use, never is it, you know, never is it important. And there's kind of, because she's the one in the domestic abuse relationships starting off in the movie. And it shows later on in the picture scenes of her in a flashback interacting with her father, and her father being massively abusive towards her physically, mentally, and alludes to sexually, in a sense. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this is all very, again, chilling and uncomfortable, and maybe we'll have some kind of thematic resolution to this, since it's come up now twice. Which brings me neatly along to the love triangle, which I have written down as lazy love triangle, Bill, Bev, and Ben. So, Bill is the stuttering kid who grows up to be a screenwriter, and I believe he's supposed to be like a cutesy allusion to Stephen King himself. You know, they joke about how all of his books have shitty endings and so forth, and him and Bev are implied to have, you know, some sort of romantic connection, and Ben was the fat kid when he was younger, and he is, and they make a point of bringing up multiple times, now he is, like, ripped and attractive, sort of thing. And there's, like, this love triangle where the kids can't quite remember what happened when they were young. When they move out of town, their memory elapses, sort of thing. Like, it goes away. And so as they return to town, more and more of it comes back. They all remember one another, but not necessarily the specifics. And so Ben has been in love with Beverly since he was a child, and Beverly kind of has a thing for Bill, but also kind of has a thing for Ben. And at the end of the movie, this is just spoilers, I'm sorry, Beverly and Ben end up getting together. And the takeaway from it, in my mind, is there's no, like, okay, maybe it's, like, you know, a happy ending for her because she had, like, a shitty relationship and so forth, but it's not really conclusive as to, like, thematically speaking, it doesn't do anything for her established backstory. It doesn't bring any kind of, you know, meaningful resolution to the trials and tribulations of her life. And the moral of the story for Ben is basically, if you're a fat kid who got bullied, all you have to do is work out, and then the girl that you really liked will fall in love with you. Bing, bang, boom, it's that easy. So that's lazy, 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 lazy writing. Let's see. We'll go with film diffuses all tension with goofy bullshit. Once again, I would like to reiterate that incredibly well shot and performed, but every time there is a buildup of tension, there's a scene where, I'm going to use this one again, I'm going to talk about Beverly again because I'm already spoiling all her shit. She returns to her father's apartment where she lived when she was in Derry, and there's an old woman living there now, and immediately unsettling with her behavior and so forth. Well, she's in the living room while the old woman is in the kitchen, and you're basically piecing together her connections, and things aren't quite right here. And then you see, like, her, like, half naked, like, jerking motion across the kitchen. Like, the entire audience, it was a packed theater, the entire audience laughed. Okay, and if that's what you're trying to do, fine, but, you know, you have the potential of genuinely being unsettling and frightening, and repeatedly, consistently throughout the movie, you have, you know, characters, like, it's just not scary. They turn everything into a fucking joke. Ritchie, who was played by Finn Wolfhard in the first movie and in the flashbacks for this movie, is played by, I don't know the gentleman who plays him as an adult, but he did very, very well in the film. He kind of stole the show, really. Very solid performance from him. I forgot why I brought him up now. Jesus. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's a stand-up comedian in his professional life now that he's an adult, and he is constantly making zingers and one-liners and cracks and quips. At one point, Mike, who stayed in the town the entire time, I guess I should, you know, give you some kind of synopsis. All the friends except for Mike left the town of Derry, and so now things are starting to happen again, and Mike calls them all to come back to town. Mike tells them that they all have to split up and go find a memento of their experience growing up in the town for reasons that I'll get into shortly. And so the entire group splits up, and I turn to the person I'm sitting with in the theater, and I go, this is some stupid fucking bullshit. And then on screen, Ritchie goes, well, that's fucking retarded, or something. Well, he doesn't say retarded because you can't say retard in cinema anymore. But he's like, that's fucking dumb. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so hang a lampshade on it. But then they do it anyways. Like, it doesn't matter if you joke about how shitty your plot is when you still continue on with that shitty plot. Like, it doesn't matter. Which brings me to another major problem I have with the film, is that it does the same thing that Avengers Endgame did that pisses me off, where the characters are all split up and we get these little vignettes of each individual mission or adventure or whatever that they're all going off and doing by themselves. All of these little stories hit the exact same beats. All of them have that same problem as the scene I was talking about with Beverly. where the tension is undermined, you already know what's going to happen, and for me at least, at no point did I ever think that any of them were, in danger of dying, which is, the threat. So it was fucking boring. Which brings me neatly to another point, meandering plot overly long. The movie feels about an hour too long. An hour too long. Like, the entire third act, I was fucking bored and I was waiting for it to end. There's, I'll hit these 2 points and then I'll get concisely to the ending sort of thing. Self-referential memes. Again, Ritchie is now a stand-up comedian, and early on in the film he's joking about how Pennywise does, like, hey guys, remember the little dance he did? Yeah, we all saw the GIF on the front page of Reddit. Yeah, good job. Excellent. Again, diffusing all the tension and the scariness. I understand that it was a big joke in the popular culture, but we as an audience invested in this film have to take the threat seriously. And again, you're undermining the threat of the principal antagonist with stupid shit like that. And somewhat related to that, jerking off with classic movie references. You guys remember Nightmare on Elm Street? You guys remember Poltergeist? Sorry, tip of my tongue. Poltergeist. Multiple references to Poltergeist. And there's a scene where a head is decapitated and little spider legs come out. It is shot and framed and plays out exactly like it did in John Carpenter's The Thing. It rips you straight out of the moment. Like the spider legs come out of the side of the head, and I'm like, okay, where are the little fucking antennas? Just if you're gonna commit to such a blatant reference, just go all the way with it, And speaking of Poltergeist, let's talk about prophecies. Let's talk about ancient Indian burial grounds. Let's talk about holy men and how this is the cornerstone of lazy writing, we have a scary thing, so now we have to, it's got to be like an ancient myth, and there's got to be some stupid mystical voodoo bullshit to diffuse the situation at the end, because that's what the entire third act is. And without straight up spoiling the ending, yeah, I'm just gonna spoil the ending. So they go into, the house, which, the person I was there in the movie, she informed me that that was from the first movie. It was, where the final confrontation went down. They go underneath it to, this underground chasm, and there's, a big, stupid, soundstage set, or whatever, and they're doing this ancient Indian ritual, which they say Indian, not Native American, natives, ritual, to banish Pennywise or whatever, the ancient, to banish it. And it doesn't go right, and then, there's consequences to that, and then it gets into some more stupid little vignettes of, dreams or whatever. And then at the end, Pennywise is defeated by them calling him a bully. He's, a giant hulking monster, and then, you ain't shit, you're just a stupid clown, you're just a bully, and then he physically shrinks up, and Mike rips his heart out, and then the group of kids, the losers, as they call themselves, get together, and they all put their hands on one another, and then they squeeze his heart, and he dies. It's like some fucking, kids' TV show, The Magic of Friendship garbage, and B, when Mike ripped the heart out, you could have, it would be more fitting for Mike himself to have been the one to have defeated Pennywise with the others present, because Mike is the one who stayed in the town the entire time. Mike is the one who spent the last 30 years prepping for this and getting ready for it, researching and figuring out how to do this stupid bullshit. Why not just have him be the one to deliver the final blow instead of this Sailor Moon garbage? Oh. And then the movie goes on for another 25 minutes after this. It felt like watching The Return of the King. Where it's just an ending, and then another ending, and then another ending, and then another ending. And it just doesn't feel earned whatsoever. And and Ritchie's gay. Yeah. So I guess that's your thematic conclusion for that horrible like hate violence at the beginning of the movie is one of your principal characters turns out to be gay. So long story and the special effects were very hit or miss. So overall, like 5 out of 10. Not an incompetently made film, well performed, well shot, composed, and so forth. Needed some serious editing. Like you could chop an hour out of this movie. And the greatest weakness is the writing, which is something that no film can overcome. You can be a poorly written film made well and still suck, or you can be a excellently written film made poorly and be good. It was massively disappointing, is how I would describe the movie, and that's coming from the perspective of someone who was previously uninvested. I don't know if you liked the first one, if you liked the original, if you liked the book, how you would feel about it, but me as an outsider, there was so much potential on display, completely squandered. So that's pretty much it. Like 5 out of 10. Maybe a 4.